A 117-year-old book written by 3 anonymous authors just explained Bitcoin better than anything I've ever read. And the crazy part is that it was published 100 years before Bitcoin even existed. That sentence should make no sense, but by the end of this episode, I think you're going to agree with me, and I think you're going to see Bitcoin in a different light than you've ever seen it before. Hey everyone, I'm Bram Kanstein and this is Bitcoin for Millennials. In a previous episode, I talked about the trap, how fiat money hijacks your consciousness. And in this episode, I'll be building on these initial ideas and mapping Bitcoin against the 7 fundamental laws of reality laid out in a book called the Kibaleon. Published in 1908 by 3 anonymous authors who called themselves the 3 Initiates. No names, no publicity, they claim to be passing down the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus. The book lays out 7 principles that supposedly govern all of reality. Not some of it, but all of it. And when I started mapping these principles onto money, something clicked that I couldn't unsee. If you're enjoying my content, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe to the channel and like my video to support my journey. Thanks a lot. Now let's dive in. Principle 1 is mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is mental. The first principle says everything begins in the mind. Reality is mental and consciousness precedes creation. And money is the ultimate mental construct, right? A dollar bill is a piece of paper. Your bank balance is electrons arranged in a pattern on a third-party database. The value exists entirely in the shared mental space of everyone who agrees to honor it. That's it. There's nothing else underneath. Now, where it gets interesting is that central banks understand the principle of mentalism better than anyone else. They call it managing expectations. They know that if they change what people believe about money, they change its effective value. A single press conference from the Federal Reserve literally moves trillions. Not because physical reality changed, because the collective mental state shifted. I call this dark mental alchemy, manipulating belief to manipulate value. Now, Bitcoin takes a completely different approach. It says, you do not have to believe anything. You don't need to trust anyone's words. You just run a node, verify the supply, and check the code. The mental construct of Bitcoin's value is grounded in mathematical proof, not institutional promises. It makes the hallucination honest. And that distinction matters more than you think because it connects directly to the next principle. Principle 2 is about correspondence. As above, so below, as below, so above. This one says patterns repeat at every level. What happens at the top mirrors at the bottom. What's true in one domain corresponds to truth in another. And when you apply this to money, it hits hard because when your monetary base is corrupted, everything built on top of it corrupts. Since President Nixon closed the gold window in 1971, wages have stagnated relative to productivity. Wealth inequality has exploded and household debt became normal. Above all, social trust declined dramatically. Corrupt the money and the corruption ripples through every system that touches it, which is everything. Everything is downstream from the money. Now flip that, because Bitcoin's base layer is radically transparent. Every transaction is verifiable, and rules apply equally to everyone. There's no special access, there's no Cantillon advantage, and there's no hidden manipulation. And as above, so below. When the foundation is honest, all the systems built on top of it trend toward honesty. And people can still try to play manipulative games, but they won't get as far as with fiat money. And I think this is one of Bitcoin's most underappreciated features. People focus on the price, but the principle of correspondence says the real revolution is what happens to every system built on honest money. And that's basically civilization itself. Now, those first 2 principles lay the foundation. Money is a mental construct and that construct shapes everything built on top of it. But the next principle contains an insight that really reframed how I see every financial rescue that's ever happened. And once you hear it, you won't be able to watch the news the same way. Because principle 3 is about polarity. Everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature but different in degree. The Kibaleon says opposites aren't different things. They're the same thing at different degrees. Hot and cold are both temperatures. Light and dark are both illumination. Love and hate are both emotion. So fiat and Bitcoin aren't different categories. They're both money at opposite poles. Centrally controlled versus decentralized. Infinitely expandable versus absolutely scarce. Opaque versus transparent. Trust-based versus verification-based. Depreciating versus appreciating. Same thing, different degree. And the real insight here is that the bailout and the bubble are the same force. Quantitative easing and currency debasement are identical in nature. The rescue and the crisis are the same phenomenon at different poles. Every time someone tells you we had to print money to save the economy, the principle of polarity reveals that the saving and the destroying are the same act viewed from different angles. Every bailout is a debasement. Every rescue is a theft. Same force, different pole. Now let that sink in for a second, because Bitcoin resolves this by removing the spectrum entirely. There is no dial, there's no discretion. There are no poles to swing between. 21 million is 21 million Bitcoin. Whether the economy is booming or crashing, whether it's an election year or not, whether Jerome Powell woke up or not, whether the committee decides to act or not. The protocol doesn't have poles because it doesn't have opinions. Now, polarity shows you that these so-called opposites are connected. But the next principle makes you feel it, because this one explains why your entire financial life feels like chaos and why Bitcoiners seem to carry an entire different energy. And principle 4 is all about vibration. The Kibaleon says nothing rests, everything moves and everything vibrates. It says differences between matter, energy and consciousness come down to frequency. Different rates of vibration, and whoever understands vibration has grasped the scepter of power. Think about money as a frequency signal. Sound money that holds its value is predictable. That cannot be debased, and it sends a clean signal. You can tune your life to it, you can plan against it, and it creates a coherence. The signal of fiat money is pure noise. M2 money supply expanded 40% in 2 years during COVID. Peak year-over-year growth hit 26.9% in February 2021 in the US, the highest ever recorded. Every time the Federal Reserve meets, the frequency shifts. Every press conference, every dot plot, every transitionary becomes persistent. Is that recognizable? I think so. Static noise. You cannot build your life on noise. Every time the Federal Reserve meets, the frequency shifts. Every press conference, every dot plot, every transitionary becoming a persistent flip, that is just static noise. And you cannot build your life on noise. Bitcoin vibrates at a frequency set at its creation that has never changed. Every 10 minutes, a block. Every 210,000 blocks, a halving. And after the 2028 halving, annual inflation drops to about 0.39%. Roughly 1/5 that of the rate of gold. It's all known from now until approximately the year 2140. I call this the fixed frequency, not monetary policy. It's monetary physics, a reliable, predictable rhythm you can attune your entire financial life to. And I think that's why Bitcoiners seem calmer about the future. They've tuned into a signal that doesn't shift based on who's in charge. While everyone else is trying to build on noise, they're building on a frequency that was set in stone 17 years ago and hasn't moved once. If your Bitcoin doubled tomorrow, would you feel good about how it's secured right now? Most people haven't really pressure tested that, and I get it. Some people are comfortable taking full control of their own keys, but others want security without having to manage it all themselves. That's why I partnered with OnRamp, multi-institution custody where your keys are held across independent institutions in multiple jurisdictions. No single company can access, move or lose your Bitcoin. Lloyd's of London insured, inheritance planning built in, and a team that walks you through the entire setup. They serve clients globally, whether you're in the US, Europe or anywhere else. Book a free consultation at onrampbitcoin.com/Bram to learn more. That's onrampbitcoin.com/Bram. Most people stop too early with Bitcoin. They buy it, maybe move it to a wallet and think they are done. But they're not. The real questions are how you're securing it, how private your setup is, and whether you're verifying your own transactions or trusting someone else. And what happens to your Bitcoin when something happens to you. This is the layer that most people ignore, and it's the most important one. That's why I've been working with the Bitcoin Way. They help you set up self-custody properly, including privacy, cybersecurity, inheritance, and even running your own node. And they do it without ever touching your Bitcoin. They're not a custodian. They're your support team. If you're serious about this like I am, go to thebitcoinway.com/Bram, that's BRAM, to book a free call. They'll walk you through your setup, personalize everything to you, and help you get a much stronger position very quickly, whether you're a beginner or more advanced. That's thebitcoinway.com/Bram. All right. So far, we've seen that money is a mental construct that shapes everything above it, that opposites are the same force, and that fiat sends a chaotic frequency while Bitcoin sends a clean one. But those are all somewhat abstract. And the next principle is the one that made me quite angry, actually, because it names exactly who benefits from the chaos and how. Principle 5 is about cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. And then there's this line from the book. The masses of people are carried along obedient to environment, the wills and desires of others stronger than themselves, moving them about like pawns on the chessboard of life. But the masters become movers instead of pawns. They help to play the game of life instead of being played and moved about by others' wills. We are pawns on a chessboard moved by wills stronger than our own. And that's the Cantillon effect written in philosophical language. New money is created by central and commercial banks, and it enters through primary dealer banks. They deploy it into financial assets. Asset prices rise, and by the time it reaches ordinary wages, prices have already risen. The masses are moved and they don't even know the game is being played. They experience inflation as bad luck, as an unexplained force making everything harder. I can hear Christine Lagarde say in my mind, the beast of inflation came out of nowhere, right? But it is not chance. Chance is but a name for a law not recognized, right? It's the direct, predictable effect of a specific cause, monetary expansion that benefits insiders first. During the pandemic, the world's billionaires gained over $2 trillion. The top 1% captured 63% of all new wealth created, and meanwhile, 50 to 67% of Americans still live paycheck to paycheck. That is definitely not chance, that is cause and effect. Those closest to the cause get the effect. Those furthest away get the opposite. Now, Bitcoin makes this causation transparent. There's a public supply schedule. There's a known issuance rate. There is a verifiable transaction history. There are no hidden causes, no secret meetings deciding who gets access first. When you understand Bitcoin's causal structure, you're no longer a pawn. You understand the board on which the game is played. And so basically, you move from a pawn to a player, from effect to cause, from being moved to being a mover. Now, 5 principles in, and you can kind of see the architecture. Money shapes reality. Corruption cascades downwards, and opposites are the same force. Fiat sends noise while Bitcoin sends signal, and the system moves you like a pawn without you knowing. But the 6th principle is the one that hit me the hardest, because it's not about the system, it's about you. About what you feel every single day but haven't been able to name. And once I name it, I think you'll recognize it immediately. Principle 6 is about gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. The Kibaleon is very clear. This isn't about biological sex. It's about 2 complementary energies present in everything. You have masculine energy, which is active, projective, and initiating. And you have feminine energy, which is receptive, nurturing, and sustaining. Both are essential and necessary. Creation requires both in balance. And here's the connection that I think nobody has made before, and once you hear it, you're going to see it everywhere. In economics, the masculine principle is spending, investing, deploying, and acting. The active, outward-directed energy. The feminine principle is saving, preserving, accumulating, and building slowly. The receptive, inward-directed energy. Fiat money systematically suppresses the feminine principle. When inflation punishes saving, the system screams at you to act. You need to spend, you need to invest, you need to leverage, deploy. Always do everything outward. Always be active, never holding, never preserving, never patiently accumulating. The entire culture shifts to match. Short-term, competitive, extractive, and restlessness. I mean, we cannot deny that this is the place and time that we're in, right? There's this constant pressure to hustle, to optimize, and to grind. And the guilt around rest. The inability to just hold still and let things grow. There's this nagging voice that's telling everyone that sitting still means falling behind. And that is not just hustle culture. That's a monetary system that punishes the feminine principle and rewards only the masculine. The imbalance isn't in you, it's in the money. And Bitcoin restores this balance. When savings appreciate instead of depreciate, patience becomes power. Holding is a valid strategy, and not acting is rational. The feminine energy of preservation, of long-term nurturing, of slowly building something that is real becomes economically viable again on a Bitcoin standard. And I think that's why so many Bitcoiners report changes that go way beyond money. They consume less, they think longer term, they invest in health and relationships and skills instead of stuff. They feel calmer, less frantic, and more patient. That's not a personality change, that's the rebalancing of masculine and feminine economic energy. As above, so below. When the money changes, the culture changes. For my European friends that want to buy Bitcoin with ease, check out Relay. I've been a long-time fan and happy to partner up with what I think is the best Bitcoin-only platform for Europeans. They offer a super simple, beginner-friendly app with no distractions and no shitcoins. You can do a quick one-time smash buy or set up automatic purchases when you're stacking regularly. And here's the thing that matters most. Relay is 100% self-custody. Every set you hold is yours. Your keys, your coins. If you want to get started, download the app via my link below or in the description and use code BRAM, that's BRAM, at checkout to get 10% off your fees. Every Bitcoiner hits this moment. You need cash. Maybe a house deposit, an emergency, or a tax bill, and you're staring at your stack thinking, do I really want to sell this? Here's the thing, you don't have to. You can borrow against your Bitcoin instead, so there's also no taxable event and your stack can keep on stacking. This is where Firefish comes in, a peer-to-peer marketplace for Bitcoin-backed loans. And Firefish isn't a lender. They built the protocol that makes this all possible, which is exactly why they never, ever have to touch your Bitcoin. During your loan, your Bitcoin sits in an on-chain multisig secured by open source code. You can easily create a loan request with your desired amount, duration, and interest rate and share it on their marketplace at firefish.io. When you get matched and decide to accept a loan offer, you can use code BRAM to get 30% off your first loan's fees. That's firefish.io and code BRAM. Now, 6 principles, 6 violations by fiat money, and 6 alignments by Bitcoin. And I've saved the last one on purpose because the 7th principle doesn't just describe another problem. It describes the problem, the solution, and the transformation all in one, and I think it contains the most elegant description of what Bitcoin offers that I've ever encountered from anyone. Principle 7 is about rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall, and the measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. Every artificial boom stores energy for an equal bust. That is the boom-bust cycle described in a single sentence written over a century ago. And the Federal Reserve's entire project, their whole reason for existing, is essentially to fight the principle of rhythm, to have booms without busts, to swing the pendulum right without it ever swinging back left. And every time, the principle wins. The dot-com bubble, the housing crisis, the COVID crash, each bust proportional to the preceding artificial boom. Rhythm compensates, always. But here's the part that really got me, the part that changed how I see Bitcoin forever. The Kibaleon doesn't just describe the problem, it teaches the solution. It says the master of hermetics polarizes himself at the point at which he desires to rest and then neutralizes the rhythmic swing of the pendulum. The master doesn't fight the swing. The master steps off the pendulum. Think about what that means. You don't beat the boom and bust cycle by timing it better. You don't win by being smarter about when to buy and when to sell. You step off entirely. You find the still point and you opt out of the swing. Bitcoin is this still point. Its rhythm is embedded, natural and predictable. Every 10 minutes there's a block. Every 4 years there's a halving. No surprise interventions, no emergency rate cuts, no transitionary becoming permanent overnight. No committee meetings, no press conferences, and no dot plots. The Kibaleon says the masses are swung backward and forward like a pendulum, but the master finds the point of rest. I know I want to be that master, and I think you do too. And that's what this is really about. Not just better money, not just better economics. It's about stepping off the swing, finding the frequency, rebalancing the energy, and moving from pawn to player, from noise to signal, from being swung to sitting still. 7 principles, 7 violations by fiat money, 7 alignments by Bitcoin. The Kibaleon opens with a promise. It says, "He who knows these principles understandingly possesses the magic key before whose touch all the doors of the temple fly open." I think Bitcoin is that key, not because it's better technology, not just because it's better economics, but because it's aligned with something way, way deeper, with the way reality itself is structured, with principles that have been understood for millennia and are only now finding their monetary expression. Fiat money fights reality and Bitcoin aligns with it. And anything that aligns with the fundamental architecture of reality, that endures. The Kibaleon has endured for over a century. The Hermetic tradition it draws from has endured for millennia, and I believe Bitcoin will endure, too, for the exact same reason. Because truth has a frequency, and when you tune into it, you know. Stay humble, stack sats, and align with the principles. Thanks for listening to Bitcoin for Millennials. If this episode opened a door you didn't know was there, please share it and go pick up a copy of the Kibaleon. After this episode, I think you will read it entirely differently. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, you can click here to find more just like it, and click here to find all Bitcoin for Millennials podcast episodes. Also, if you want to help me shine a light on the message of Bitcoin, please like this video and subscribe to stay connected. I hope to see you for the next episode. Bye.